What's up, everybody? It's your favorite South Carolina Gamecock fan, Carolina Jackpot, coming at you on Wednesday evening. As promised, we will deliver. It's going to be week number 1, the weekend of September 1st, 2018. And here are our picks and predictions against the spread on these games for the 2018 college football season. I got 21 games to do tonight. Promised you 20 a week, or said we were going to do about that many. I wanted to do 21 this week. I had 20 laid out, but then I decided to put my South Carolina Gamecocks and Coastal Carolina's game in there as well, so I just had to do it. So let's get going right now. Let's get going and off to the races, man. It's been too long of an off season. I'm ready to go. Thursday night, tomorrow, UCF is on the road against UConn. UCF is a 23.5-point favorite against UConn. Now, UCF, they're looking to see if they can go and be more explosive under Josh Heupel. Do you think they can or they cannot be? I think they can, to be quite honest with you. They put up a ton of points last year. Mackenzie Milton is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the nation. He's a really, really prolific dual-threat guy. Accounted for over 4,000 yards last year. Adrian Killens, who is one of their running backs, over 1,000 yards last year in the backfield. So, you know, they can hit you from everywhere. These guys are really, really dangerous, and they're going to put up some points this year. They're going to be nasty and just stupid points all over the place. UConn only returns 2 defensive starters this year. That may be a good thing because they gave up like almost 35 points a game last year. They were 130th in FBS in defense in 2017. Absolutely terrible, pathetic. Randy Edsall's back for his second stint at UConn. He was at Maryland in between his 2 stints. He should have stayed there because they might not be in the mess that they're in right now. And he rebuilt this program one time, trying to rebuild it again, and I feel like he will rebuild them into maybe a middle of the pack team in the AAC. But it's not going to happen this year, and it's definitely not going to happen tomorrow night. UCF is going to absolutely boat race UConn on their home field. Looking at this to be, I think UCF might beat them like 50-10. Or 55-14, something like that. UConn may score a few garbage time points, but that's it. UCF to cover the spread in the first game that we're going to pick here. Moving on, Northwestern at Purdue. This is a very good game. This is probably the best game of the night. Quarterback Clayton Thorson is the question mark for Northwestern. Not that he's going to play, but is he going to be the same player he was last year? He won some ACL surgery in the off season. So there's that. You know, there's always question factor if you're going to be able to recover from that totally. Northwestern was 10-3 last year, 7-2 in the Big Ten. They did start slow, though. You remember, if you remember, like week 2, they lost to Duke 41-17 or something like that. So Northwestern has a tradition for getting out of the gate really slow. So there's something to look at. They've got a little bit more bowl and big game experience than Purdue does, as traditionally in at least the past 10 to 15 years or so. The road team has kind of killed the spread in this rivalry. However, I don't see it really happening tomorrow night. Purdue was 7-6 last year, first year under Jeff Brom. I think they are definitely on the uptake. As a team you need to keep an eye on. They are definitely right now the second best college football team in the state of Indiana. And they are on their way, perhaps, to being the best college football team in the state of Indiana. You know, that means I got to take down, though, right? Unfortunately, they don't play those guys. They don't play the Golden Domers, but or not anytime soon that I know of. But look for Purdue to make a big splash this year. I think this team is definitely on the rise. I think Northwestern's on the rise, too. I think they're a good team as well. I just don't see them winning this game tomorrow night. It's a 1.5-point spread. That's just too close to be. It's a game at home. Purdue coming off one of their best seasons in years and years. That crowd's going to be pumped. They're going to have a lot of people there in, what's it called, Ross Aid Stadium. and West Lafayette. And I think Purdue is going to cover that 1.5-point spread. Look for their quarterback, Elijah Sindelar, to have a big evening as well. Both these teams good defensively. I think that Purdue just gets it done tomorrow night. Oop, I didn't write it down. Cover Purdue 1.5. I think they win by about 7. Wake Forest at Tulane. This game is actually being played on Tulane's campus, Ullman Stadium. They don't play in the Superdome anymore. If anybody realize that, they haven't played there in about 5 years, but nobody really pays a lot of attention to Tulane until tonight. Willie Fritz was a quarterback or the head coach at Georgia Southern. They ran the ball a lot. Now they're running the ball a lot at Tulane. Wake Forest has a weak defense against the run. That's one of their only downfalls. That and the fact that tomorrow night they're starting a freshman quarterback. His name's Sam Hartman. Kendall Hinton, who is their starting quarterback, has been suspended for the first 3 games for a violation of team rules. So I don't think it's going to hurt them that much tomorrow night, but it may hurt them next week against Boston College at home. Look for that to play a big role in that game. Wake Forest, one of your most underrated teams over the past few years. You know, I like the job that they're doing up there. Last year, got a bowl win over Texas A&M in the Belt Bowl. 8 returning starters on offense, 6 on defense. You got Greg Dortch returning at wide receiver, who was injured for some of last year, but he's coming back. Greg Colburn, the running back. So I am a believer in Dave Clawson and what he's doing there at Wake Forest. 6-point favorites on the road, though, against Tulane. Starting a true freshman quarterback on the road, that's kind of tough. That's a daunting task for anybody. And you know, Tulane was 5-7 last year. They've been improving a little bit the past couple of years. They improved under Fritz, and I think they're going to continue to improve. Home 6-point spread is a lot to cover. I do think Wake Forest is going to win this game, but I think this is going to be a pretty good one. I think they may win, but only by about 3 points. Wake Forest, I think, definitely better than Tulane. And when they get Hinton back at quarterback and the ball starts really rolling there, you're going to see that. But starting this young man out tomorrow night with no experience whatsoever in a college game, I think might be a little bit much for him. But I still think they're going to find a way to pull it out. Look for the green wave to cover the spread there. And Wake Forest to pull out a narrow victory. And if they spring the upset, it would not surprise me. Friday night, Syracuse on the road at Western Michigan in Waldo Stadium. I don't know what town they play in Michigan. Anyway, it's at Western Michigan. Syracuse on the road. The Orange return, Eric Dungy hurt last year. Most of the second half of the year, Dante Strickland at running back. They've lost a couple of wide receivers who were big playmakers. The most notable of those, Steve Ishmael. On defense, you know, they're returning about half the starters there. Are really weak in the linebacking core. All those guys are gone. You know, this is kind of like one of those games that you don't really know. It's tough. It's tough to pick it. But Syracuse is good when Dungy is under center. Last year, if you remember, they beat Clemson. They beat Virginia Tech the year before that. So I'm a believer in Eric Dungy and what he's got going on there. I'm a believer in Dino Babers. I think that he's a good coach. You know, he's not able to pick up those big wins at Syracuse just because of the talent level and the competition that he faces. But you got to look at this, too. I heard somebody talking on a radio show the other day, said Dino Babers deserves to have a better job. He's a better coach than that, blah, blah, blah. It's just hard to win at Syracuse. Well, guess what? James Franklin proved that he could win at Vanderbilt. You know, there have been coaches in the past that proved that they could win at places that have been traditional losers. Kim Niumatalolo has proved that he can win at Navy. Okay, Jeff Munkin has proved that he can win at Army. You know, so Babers, before he can move on to a bigger job than this as a head coach, he's got to prove that he can win at Syracuse, even with some injuries. I do think they cover the spread in this game tomorrow night. Western Michigan, P.J. Fleck moved on to Minnesota, I believe it was, as head coach. And he had a really talented squad at Western Michigan. In fact, one year, I think they were undefeated a few years ago, but didn't make a major bowl game because, you know, it's Western Michigan and they play in the MAC. But PJ didn't leave the cupboard bare. You know, however, Syracuse just a little bit better, like I say, across the lines of scrimmage, a little bit better strength. I think they will wear Western Michigan down at the end of the third and into the fourth quarter. I think this is going to be a tight game up until halftime, but then look for the Orange to kind of pull it away, and I say win by 10 points to a couple of scores. So we're going to pick the Orange to cover the spread against Western Michigan on the road there. Should be a good game. Colorado State playing in Denver, as they usually do. Colorado State's a 7.5-point underdog to the Buffaloes of the Pac-12. Oh, man, last week, Colorado State, I had them picked to win that game at home against Hawaii, and they really disappointed me. They got a lot of work to do. They were a bowl team last year, but, you know, they've lost their starting quarterback and some other offensive skill people, but KJ Carter-Samuels, who was quarterback from Washington a couple of years ago as a graduate transfer, he came over to Colorado State, you know, should be able to get him going. He did well against Hawaii, but Colorado State couldn't stop anything the Rainbow Warriors were doing, which is kind of rough. Colorado, they returned some experience on the secondary and linebackers. The defense is really good. And, you know, obviously anybody can score against Colorado State. If Hawaii can run the score up against you, I definitely think the Colorado Buffaloes will as well. They're 8-2 in these games played in Denver the past 10 years, and I don't look for that to change this year. The Buffaloes from the Pac-12 go on ahead and cover the spread against little brother Colorado State in the Mile High City. That's just the way I see it. San Diego State on the road at Stanford. Last year, 21-17, San Diego State pulled off kind of an upset victory in the last minutes against Stanford. This year, Stanford, of course, returning Bryce Love. David Shaw always puts together a solid team, solid defense, solid game plan. He's a really good coach. I think that they're just, you know, one of those teams that's just a few plays away from perhaps contending for a Pac-12 championship and a spot in those playoffs. You know, Love was injured a lot of the second half of last year. He returns this year. He's full strength. He's everybody's Heisman Trophy #1 contender. San Diego State, they lost Rashad Penny from their backfield. Penny accounted for a lot of yards last year. I mean, a lot of yards. Accounted for a lot of yards in that 21-17 win against Stanford. I don't think that going to Palo Alto this year is going to be what the Aztecs are looking for, where they need to be. It's a 14-point spread. Stanford as a favorite at home. I'm a believer in the Cardinal. I'm a believer in David Shaw and what they're trying to do offensively there, and a big-time believer in Bryce Love. I think he's going to run wild in this game. Going to get a lot of revenge for that upset loss last year, and I think they're going to beatbox the San Diego State Aztecs. Look for the Stanford Cardinal to cover this spread by 3 scores or so, and you know, kind of put that memory to rest. Army on the road at Duke. Army's got to replace their quarterback, don't they? Amon Bradshaw, man, that guy was a little bitty dude. Last year he did everything up under center if you watched any of their games. So they're looking to avenge another loss last year. Duke lost to this team. I think it was 21-16 or 20. It may have been 21-17 at West Point. Duke turned the ball over a couple of times, didn't play well on the offensive side of the ball in that game, and dropped a decision to the Black Knights up at West Point, Michie Stadium. This is a different Army team. They lost Bradshaw, and they lost 4 starting offensive linemen. So when you run that option package, you've lost that quarterback, and you've lost 4 experienced offensive linemen. That's not good. That is not good at all. Jeff Monken's a good coach. He's turned that program around, and I think they'll still, you know, win 6-7 games, and I think they'll still make it to a bowl. But they're not winning this game. Not on the road tomorrow night in the opener against Duke. Duke is too good defensively. They returned 8 starters on defense. That Gilbert guy who plays in their secondary is an elite player, one of the best in the ACC. That's the strength of their team. I want to see Daniel Jones, their quarterback, do a little bit of something this year, and I think they will. He has a guy named Britton Brown in the backfield who can be dangerous at times too. I think last year was one of those kind of fluky upsets. I don't look for that to happen again this year. However, opening up, 13.5-point favorite Duke. I don't know if they're good enough offensively to distance themselves from Army by 13.5 points. They got a little bit of revenge on their mind. They're ready for them. I think in this game, I am going to go on ahead. Duke's going to win the game, but it's not going to be by a whole ton. This is a crazy line. I'm going to pick Duke to cover the spread here. I'm going to pick them to cover the spread. I'm a believer in Daniel Jones and Duke. I think they're going to win by about 17 to 21 points. Avenge that loss from last year. Duke is one of those teams. They're going to be good this year. They're on the cusp of that. They need to salt this game away early, and Duke needs to be focused on getting a win over an elite team, winning against a Miami, winning a game against a Virginia Tech that's good, winning a game against Clemson. It's not undoable to beat Clemson if you're not a really good team. If you're a Pittsburgh or a Syracuse, they've done it before. So I could definitely see Duke going on the road, catching them napping, catching Clemson coming in there 10-0, and beating them this year. I really could. Duke covers the spread against Army on Friday night. Oregon State on the road at Ohio State, 38.5-point favorites. The Ohio State Buckeyes are. That's a lot of points. It really is a lot of points. Now, no doubt Ohio State's really going to be talented this year, as they are every year. Urban Meyer, what is he? He's sitting in the stands for the first couple of games. He's not allowed to practice with them or coach them in practice those first couple. And then the third game, TCU game that they're playing, is he allowed to maybe be in the press box or something like that? Something like that. I don't really know. There's a lot of drama going on there. Just a lot of upheaval and distraction in Columbus right now. And I think that, Ohio State is definitely 15 times more talented than Oregon State. And, they should beat them on a regular Saturday, 56-0. But, Oregon State, looking at them, they're returning 15 starters from last year's team. They were 1-11 last year, 1-11. Yeah, I know, that's horrid. But one of their former quarterbacks, Jonathan Smith, is returning to coach the team. They played a couple of close games last year. One of them, most notably, against Stanford. On a Thursday night, if y'all remember that, I don't know if you saw it or not or watched it, they almost beat Stanford. That was one of the games Bryce Love got hurt in. But still, even if Bryce Love goes down, Stanford should still, run the gamut on Oregon State. And they didn't do it. Oregon State almost won that game, and Stanford was very fortunate to be able to come back and win it. 38.5-point favorites at home. That's a lot of points. That's 5 touchdowns. I just don't know if Ohio State is going to be able to get it going quick enough to score enough to distance themselves that much from Oregon State. Of course, Dwayne Haskins taking over as a new quarterback. I think he's going to be better than J.T. Barrett, J.K. Dobbins, and Parrish Campbell in the backfield. All these guys are elite players. They're elite playmakers, not taking away from Ohio State. They're a great team, and I think they are going to definitely challenge for a college football playoff spot this year. But I don't think they're going to cover the spread against Oregon State. I can see them. I think Oregon State's going to score a little bit and stay in it. This may be a 31-14 game, maybe a little bit closer than you think it will be. Oregon State, the Beavers, going to cover the spread on the road at Ohio State on Saturday. Here's another game, talking about some distractions. Texas and Maryland. Right now, they're about 14-point underdogs. Maryland is. I tell you what, that's just a crazy situation there. Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator, is their head coach right now. He's taking over his interim spot. DJ Durkin will probably never be back on the sideline there. They say he's been suspended indefinitely. That basically means you're fired. The Texas defense last year, after they lost to Maryland 51-41, they kind of tuned things up a little bit. They only gave up 21.2 points per game. Everybody talks about, well, TCU's only defense in the Big 12. TCU's the only one. No, no. Take a look at the stats. Texas had a really good defense last year, and they returned 7 starters on that defense. Maryland, loser of 4 of their last 5 games last year. They're just not built to compete in the Big Ten. They're not built to compete at all, especially the division that they play in. Just way too tough for them. Even if Maryland does come out with a talented team, they're still bound to finish like 5th in that side of the conference just because of the Michigans, the Penn States, the Ohio States, the Michigan States. They're just not beating any of those guys. They're just not beating any of them until they get some really, really elite talent. And right now, at this point in time, with what they got going on, they might as well just hang that up. It's not happening for a long, long time. Sam Ehlinger is going to start at quarterback for the Longhorns. He beat out Shane Buechele, I think his name is, in the summer camp. I don't call anything fall camp. There is no fall in Texas. It's either summertime or it's fixing to be summertime over there. They had a big-time bowl win the last game of the year. Against Missouri, won the Texas Bowl. Missouri was white hot to finish out 2017. White hot. That's the hottest of the hot. That means they were really good. I mean, they won like 6 games in a row there, and then Texas beat them in that bowl game. So, these guys got some momentum on their side. Tom Herman, he knows what he's doing. I think he's going to get it figured out this year. Still 14 points with inexperience in some spots. I'm going to go ahead and take Texas here. I think they're going to do it. They're going to blow Maryland out. It's just too much there. The talent gap is too large, and then the distractions with Maryland. Texas is going to cover. Middle Tennessee State at Vanderbilt. Vandy is a 3-point favorite at home against Middle Tennessee State, a team that they play most every year. They've won the last 3 against these guys. Kyle Shermer, returning for a senior season at Vanderbilt. He's been the starter for the past at least 3.5 years. They lost their leading rusher, Ralph Webb, who was, set all kind of records at Vanderbilt, but they do return Kari Blasingame in the backfield and Kalijah Lipscomb out there at wide receiver, so they got some skill talent coming back. Vanderbilt's always going to be pretty decent on defense. Derek Mason, he's from the Stanford tree, the David Shaw tree. Defense is one of the things that they preach there. Middle Tennessee State's returning 8 players on offense. One of those who's Brett Stockstill, who's the coach's son. He's quarterback. He's also been there for 4 years as well. It seems like he's been there for 100. This is a good team. They are really good, and I think a team that will most likely challenge for that Conference USA, that eastern side, or maybe it's the western, I don't know, one of the sides they're in, the championship of it. I just think Vanderbilt probably has got a little bit too much along the lines of scrimmage, and I think they'll wear them out at the end. I think that Vanderbilt covers the spread and wins this game, but look for it. It could be a touchdown or less. 3 points. Going ahead and take the Commodores because they're playing at home. But I'm telling you right now, I'm not really that confident with these guys. This is a typical Vanderbilt team. They'll probably finish 5-7, 6-6, something like that, and then beat somebody that they're not supposed to. I think that they should beat Middle Tennessee State, and I believe that they will. Cincinnati on the road at UCLA. That's kind of an odd matchup, ain't it? Chip Kelly, 46-7 as a college coach. Of course, all that was at the University of Oregon. He's 16.5-point favorites here in this game. Cincinnati, if you remember, last year traveled to Michigan, which they were much inferior to Michigan as well, and it was like a 33-17 game, much closer than people thought it would be. UCLA is 18-2 in their home openers the last 20 years. They suspended 6 players going into this game for violation of some team rules, but none of them are playmakers. They're guys on the line, this and that. Cincinnati 4-8 last year, so they're trying to rebound. You know, they were one of the better not Power 5, Group of 5 schools out there from like 2007 to like 2011 or 12. Kind of tailed off the end of that Tommy Tuberville area. They're looking to rebound. Luke Fickle, I think, is a good young coach. Going to get the job done there. And I think that they are actually going to cover the spread in this game. You know, I think that UCLA installing that new package with Chip Kelly, I think it may be a little bit much to digest going into this first game. You know, these crowds on the West Coast, they're not typically that rowdy to rattle a team. You know, if Cincinnati could play in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where you know they're rowdy, and you know they're going to get into the game in front of 100-something thousand people and keep it to a 16-point game, and that was last year, and should even be better this year. I think they can go to UCLA and at least make a game of it. They're going to lose, but 13 to 17 points, somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, 17 would be they wouldn't win against the spread there. 13, 15 points, something like that. A couple touchdowns. Look for Cincinnati to surprise and cover the spread here and keep it relatively close against a UCLA team that I think will improve over the year, but they're still installing that new package that they got to get figured out. There's a little bit of a learning curve there. Coastal Carolina on the road at South Carolina Gamecocks. 29.5-point favorites against Coastal Carolina. You know, Joe Moglia is returning as head coach at Coastal Carolina. This is their second year as an FCS team or an FBS team. They were really successful in FCS. They were not that successful last year in FBS. Only had 5 returning starters. This year, they return a few more of that, and they should be a little bit better. My Gamecocks, you know, a lot of talent returning on offense. Jake Bentley, Brian Edwards out there at receiver. Debo Samuel's come back from injury. Everybody knows what he can do. Probably the best pure athlete in the SEC. And that's not me being a homer or me being making a biased pick because I'm a South Carolina fan. It's the truth. You watched him play last year. That's unreal to think about what he could have done if he stayed healthy all year. We got some capable running backs in A.J. Turner back there along with Tyson Williams and Rico Dowell. So, you know, we said it's a 3-headed monster at one time. Well, they didn't play like it last year. I mean, one of the things that these guys need to learn how to run angry. That offensive line that we return, hopefully there's a lot of experience there. Hopefully there's no holes for these guys. Shy Smith returns. He emerged as a really good guy in the slot. South Carolina, we're going to score a lot of points this year. They're going to run a hurry-up offense, and they have definitely got the personnel to do it. This first game against Coastal Carolina, typically sometimes we start out a little bit slow, but if you'll still look at the trend over like the last 5 or 6 years, Carolina has still covered the spread against teams that we opened up with. We haven't played, kind of what you'd call a cupcake opponent such as this in our opening games either. We traditionally open with kind of a tough foe. Last year, covered the spread, beat NC State by 7 points. The year before that, we covered the spread. We actually beat Vanderbilt on the road. Yeah, it actually was an upset. We were picked to lose that game by 4 points, won. The year before that, we beat North Carolina by 4. It was a 2-point spread. The year before that, we actually didn't cover the spread. We were favored by 10 against Texas A&M and lost 56-28, which I had predicted that would happen. The year before that, 12-point favorites against UNC. We covered the spread and won that game by like 13. So I think in this one that we're going to start slow, get accustomed to that offense, but then as the game goes on, we're going to wear Coastal Carolina down. And even with the emotional uplift they're going to get from Joe Moglia coming back from the sidelines after being out for a year with some health problems, we're going to cover the spread there, win that game by about 5 scores. Look for the Gamecocks to once again cover the spread in that opening game and get a big-time win against Coastal Carolina. The team that balls at the beach is not going to ball in Columbia on Saturday. Washington versus Auburn. They're playing the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta. Auburn's a 2-point favorite against Washington. This is going to be an interesting game. This will be a good game. Washington returned Jake Browning at quarterback, Miles Gaskin at running back. This guy, if he gets outside, he is going to burn you. 1,428 yards last year. That's 8 return starters on offense, 9 on defense. On a defense that only gave up 16.1 points per game last year. And if you're looking to a defense that's almost as elite and as good as Clemson, I mean, here you go. Right here, the Washington Huskies. Auburn, Jarrett Stidham last year did a really good job coming in as a transfer from Texas A&M. Took over to quarterback position for Auburn. They've been kind of lacking at that position for a number of years, and he definitely fit the bill. It's what they needed there. Cam Martin is the guy who's going to take over the running back position. They've kind of had some, they've had everybody back there the past year or so. He's a young back, talented, but everybody back there is young, just like him. They've got some elite wide receivers, led by Ryan Davis. Auburn's defensive line does a really good job too. But they seem to kind of play down sometimes, and you never really know what they're going to get for them. They're really inconsistent at times, and I'm just not comfortable with Auburn. I'm not comfortable with them. They lost in a bowl game against a group of 5 team, and albeit it was UCF, they were a good team, but Auburn, superior strength up front on the defensive line, the offensive line. They should have won that game. It was a bowl game. They could sit there and say, we really didn't care. We really didn't try. We had beaten Alabama and we beaten Georgia, and then we kind of just, rested back. Well, I don't want to hear that. They should have kind of beat up on UCF, dominated the game in the second half, and won by about 20 points, but they didn't. They lost that game, and I'm just not sold on them. I'm not sold on them. I don't know that they have the heart to pull out these kind of big games that really need to. That just seems to be a thing with Gus Malzahn and his teams. They always have the talent. They have, all the weapons that they need to, but they just seem to kind of lack a killer instinct, in my opinion. And I think they're going to lose this game. Go ahead and take the Washington Huskies to cover the spread. Auburn may surprise me, but I think I'm accurate on that one. UNC on the road at Cal. Cal returns 10 stars on offense from an offensive team that beat UNC last year in Chapel Hill. Traveled 3,000 miles across the country and won in Chapel Hill, led by quarterback Ross Bowers and Patrick Laird, who rushed 1,200 yards last year. This was a decent team last year, even though they did finish 5-7. They lost by 3 to Stanford. We've already talked about Stanford. They were really good last year. They lost by 3 to UCLA and by 1 to Arizona. So a lot of teams that were better than Cal, they played really close games against them. UNC has suspended 13 players for selling their Michael Jordans to some athletic shop or some gift shop in Chapel Hill. But Larry Fedora has seen fit to suspend them at different times in different games. And this is what I'm talking about. To me, these guys ought to all be suspended for the first 3 games. Boom, boom, boom. If you want to suspend them for 3 games, suspend them. Just be done with it. But the fact that he's going to let them be suspended over these 3 games, he's going to pick and choose where he chooses to suspend them from, kind of speaks some volumes to me that he kind of runs an undisciplined program, because there ain't no discipline in where he's administering his discipline, if you get what I'm saying. And if he's got guys, 13 different guys that get caught up in some kind of mess and going out and taking their Jordans and selling them to people that aren't supposed to have them, just kind of shows me that he runs kind of a loose ship up there. And you've kind of seen that for a while. I mean, their defense plays real loose. They give up a lot of points. They're inconsistent. That's not a good mix. They're going to go on the road. They're going to get blown out. California's going to win this game by way more than 7 points. Go ahead and look for the Golden Bears to cover the spread there. North Carolina's going to have a tough year. And after this one, they may see the light. Mr. Fedora and his visor may be out the door. Michigan on the road at Notre Dame. This is probably one of your better matchups of the weekend. Notre Dame giving up 21.5 points a game last year. That's not much defensively when you look at some of the teams that they played against. They do return 9 stars. And you also got to look at the fact they gave up like 42 points to Miami in one of those. So Michigan returned 9 stars on D, led by Devin Bush and Rashawn Gary. These guys, they're if you want to call defense elite, they're elite. They're really good. A lot of people like to throw that word elite around a lot nowadays. Oh, they're elite. They're elite. Another word that gets thrown around is icon. They're iconic. They're iconic. They're elite. They are elite. 18.8 points a game in 2017. First game was on the road at Notre Dame. They were 8-5 last year. I think they were kind of underachievers there just a little bit. And Shea Patterson takes over the quarterback position for Michigan. They finally got someone who can actually throw the ball here a little bit. It's got a little bit of mobility to him. I just don't know. I'm just not sold on Shea Patterson. He's coming in here, and they're acting like, well, let's just put the top 10 now. They got Shea Patterson at quarterback, like he's the next Joe Montana or Tom Brady or something. I'm not sold on this guy. What did he really do at the University of, or at Ole Miss? Call him Ole Miss, not University of Mississippi. How many championships they win? What have they really done? This guy is on the road at Notre Dame. That's the holy grail of college football. Let's see what he can do here. I think he's going to be a little bit rattled in this first game, and I think that's probably going to be the difference. I think that Michigan's offense obviously will improve under Patterson. I think that they're going to get a lot more opportunities in the red zone this year. He's definitely going to be a plus for their team. I just don't think that this first game here is they're going to be able to pull that out. That is a tough place to play your first game on the road. But I could be wrong. Last year, first start for Jake Fromm for Georgia, on the road at Notre Dame. They won by 1 point. Michigan doesn't have a Nick Chubb, Sony Michel in the backfield either. So, there's that. And, Notre Dame and Brandon Wimbush, a year more experience. And this game, to be quite honest with you, is a bigger rivalry than Notre Dame-Georgia. This just means a little bit more. I look for Notre Dame to cover the spread here. It'll still be a good game, but they'll win by about one score. So, Louisville and Alabama playing in Orlando, Florida, of all places, home of Mickey Mouse and former home of Shaquille O'Neal. Alabama, in their previous 11 openers, those are all under Nick Saban, they've won by an average of 40-12. This is probably a game that was scheduled probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and probably looked to be much more intriguing at the time than it is now. Louisville, Lamar Jackson's gone. Everybody thinks, oh, Lord, he covers Bear, nothing, we can do anything. No, not necessarily so. Jawan Puma Pass takes over at the quarterback position for Louisville. Bobby Trino has always got something up his sleeve. He's a brilliant offensive mind, and he's not going to go down without a fight in any of these games. They returned Jalen Smith. A lot of you guys know, have heard of him. He was injured a lot last year as well. Seems like injuries take a toll in college football a lot nowadays. But Jalen Smith was out for about half the year. He returns this year. Alabama, their secondary this year is going to be inexperienced. I'm not going to say they're going to be weak. They're going to be inexperienced. They lost some talent to the NFL draft after last year. But you know how Alabama and Nick Saban are. They reload. They don't really struggle for a long time replacing people. They just reload. That's what good teams do. You got to hand it to them. But I do think that Puma Pass, Jalen Smith, and crew are going to able to score a few points on Alabama. Do I think that they're going to win the game? No. I don't think they're really going to keep it relatively close. But I do think that Bama will win by about 3 scores. Look for Louisville to cover the spread in this one. I think they will keep it just close enough against that inexperienced Michigan secondary to cover that 24.5-point spread. App State on the road at Penn State, they're 24-point underdogs. That's a lot of points. App State, they'll be breaking in a new quarterback this year. Not really sure who it's going to be, but I know it's not going to be. That's Taylor Lamb. He's been there, it seemed like, the past 10 years. Actually, he's only there the past 4 years, but he made quite an impact there. But the coach down there, Scott Satterfield, he always seems to have that team ready to play. They're one of those lower classified, non-Power 5 schools that always seem to reload as well. Got a good program going on there. Jalen Moore, 1,000-yard rusher, returns at running back. It's not going to be enough. Penn State, they did lose Saquon Barkley after last year. He was an elite player. But Trace McSorley returns to quarterback position, probably the best quarterback in the Big Ten. They have a veteran offensive line. It's a big offensive line. It's going to push some people around. They got some returning stars on defense. Penn State's just solid all the way around. James Franklin has really built that program up. I think App State will, hang around for a little while, but ultimately, obviously superior depth there and strength along both sides of the line of scrimmage are going to take over. Penn State's going to win this game, win it going away and easily, and I look for them to cover that 24-point spread. Happy Valley is definitely not going to be that on Saturday for App State, but I do think that these guys will continue to improve, and they'll be better throughout the year. And I think they'll end up being a 9-3, possibly 10-2 team in the Sun Belt Conference where they play at. App State has a good football program, but Penn State has a tendency to blow teams out at home. They really do. They have a tendency to work them over. The Nittany Lions with the easy win there. Central Michigan on the road at Kentucky. This is kind of an intriguing matchup. Last year, Kentucky played Eastern Michigan out of the MAC. Their place, like the third or fourth game of the year. Eastern Michigan kept that thing really, really close, and Kentucky ended up winning it by like 4 points, I think it was. And that was the week after they had beaten my Gamecocks in Columbia. So that was kind of embarrassing. They beat us, within an inch of our lives, and then they play at home against Eastern Michigan and barely squeak out a win against the MAC Eagles. This year, Kentucky returned 15 starters, one of whom is Benny Snell. It's a 1,370-yard rusher last year. He would have had over 1,400 if he hadn't got kicked out of the Music City Bowl against Northwestern for what their fans call a bullshit penalty. I don't really know if it was or not. That's what they say. Kentucky fan, they think that they're going to end up winning the SEC East Championship every year. You can sense a little twinge in my voice there. I got kind of a little rivalry going on with these guys because we lost to them 4 years in a row, and bet we bet not get the thumb. If we get the thumb, the video that I'm gonna make after that's gonna be epic. I'm telling you right now. 19 touchdowns last year though for Benny Snell. Central Michigan is not scared of these Power 5 teams. They'll take them on. Last year they played and lost to Syracuse and Boston College, both ACC teams, but they did beat Kansas. Not really a big deal. Everybody beats Kansas, don't they? They seem to always do better than they're expected to do. So, Kentucky replacing the quarterback, replacing a lot. I think they're going to win the game at home. I think they'll win it with relative ease. I think Benny Snell will be a little bit too much for the Chippewas of Central Michigan, but look for it to be a little bit closer than 17 points. I'm thinking maybe 14 points. Central Michigan will cover the spread on that road game at Kentucky. Ole Miss, Texas Tech. This one's considered to be a pick'em in some spots, right? As for the purposes of our video, we're going to say it's a 2.5-point spread, which I've seen some other places. Texas Tech's returned 16 starters, 4 starters on defense on the defensive backfield, which is going to be huge against Ole Miss because, they return A.J. Brown, DeMarcus Lodge, and D.K. Metcalf. All these guys are really, really good wide receivers. They returned Jordan Tamu, took over kind of the second half of last year for Shea Patterson. When he got hurt, this guy threw for a lot of yards. I like him down there. He can run around a little bit, and he can toss that thing. So they're solid. For a team that's on probation that has no hope of making an SEC championship or a bowl game or any of that stuff, they're still competing, they're still building, they're still growing, and I think they got a good program down there. Texas Tech lost their top 3 receivers, and they got to replace their quarterback. Even though this game is going to be played in Dallas, with those elite playmakers on offense, the receiving positions for Ole Miss, and Jordan Tamu throwing on the ball, coupled with the fact that Texas Tech has 0 experience at those skill positions, and these two teams are almost evenly matched. You just got to take Ole Miss here. You got to take Ole Miss, whether it's a pick'em or a 2.5 points. Just give me the Rebels right here straight up. I am going to take Archie Manning's old team to win that game against Texas Tech. Get a big-time win for the SEC against a notably high-flying Big 12 offense. Miami on the road, well, not on the road. It's a game against LSU, which will be played in Dallas at the Cowboy Stadium. Miami, last year, they got off out of the gate really quick, and they returned 14 starters from that team. Quarterback Malik Rozier is coming back. This guy kind of took over for Brad Kaya. And he did an okay job last year, 26 touchdowns thrown, but 14 interceptions. That's a number that he really got to improve on. Travis Homer, their running back, was injured most of the year. He's coming back, as well as their wide receiver, Amon Richards. I don't trust Miami on the line of scrimmage. It seems like when they play a tough team like a Clemson or a Wisconsin or somebody like that, they seem like they get pushed around a little bit. And then, albeit a lot of their games last year, if you look at them, their game against Georgia Tech, who they were clearly better than, their game against Florida State, who they clearly was better than, even their game against Syracuse, who they were clearly better than, in my opinion, all these games were close. They were really close. And then at the end of the year, it kind of manifested itself, because when they played Clemson in that ACC championship game, they absolutely got clown stomped. And then the bowl game on their home field against Wisconsin, guess what? Once again, clown stomped. So, LSU is not the level of a Michigan. They're not a Wisconsin. They're definitely not the level of a Clemson. But they are, a team on the line of scrimmage that's, pretty decent. But I don't trust them at the skill positions. Darius Geist, who was their most recent running back, that everybody talked about and did a lot. And then before him, of course, Leonard Fournette, who was a guy who did some really good things there. LSU's seemed like, even way back, the days of Dalton Hilliard and all these guys, they've always had somebody kind of elite at the running back position. They don't have that this year. If you go into and look at the teams they got going on this year, these guys, they have 0 returning touchdowns out of the running back position. 0 returning touchdowns. Nothing. They replaced their quarterback, Danny Etling, with Joe Burrow, who's transferring from Ohio State. I don't know anything about Joe. But to be quite honest with you, it has been a long time since LSU has had any really good quarterback play. It's been a long time since they've had any good coaching as well in the head coaching position. I don't think Ed Orgeron... I like this guy's got a big personality. The people like him down there in Baton Rouge. He's a favorite of those guys. Obviously, he knows what he's doing, but I don't think that this guy is the greatest coach in the world. He was a coach at Ole Miss. They flopped. They weren't winners there. They ended up getting rid of him. He was an assistant at Southern Cal. I think it was, who was it? Lane Kiffin or whatever, that he got let go in the middle of the year, and they let him coach the team for the rest of the year. They didn't let him stay around as head coach. They didn't want him out there. And LSU ought to have better sense than that. This guy, like that old dude on the daggum Waterboy movie, you got to have somebody to sit there and represent your team, at least knows how to speak the English language. I'm going to take Miami to cover the spread here and beat LSU in this game. I think that the fact they've just got more talent at the skill positions, that's going to speak volumes in this one. It's going to be a pretty good primetime matchup. But by no means do I think Miami's elite. They got a lot of work to do, too. I don't trust them at all. A lot of people are in love with Miami. Carolina Jackpot, not so much. Final game of the year. Now, here's a team that I'm not in love with, but I'm really crushing on. FSU, the Seminoles. I like Willie Taggart. I think he's a good coach. I like what he's got going on there and what he's building. He was only at Oregon for 1 year. It took him from like a 4-8 program back to 7-5. He's bringing some coaches with him that I think that these kids are really going to buy into. I think this is their kind of coach, and I think they're going to buy into what he's got going on. Jimbo Fisher, liked to claim himself an elite mind and all that, but I really wasn't all that impressed with anything this guy did. He did recruit some talent down there. He didn't do a lot to develop it, in my opinion. Jameis Winston and the team that he was on in 2013, they had 22 draftees in the NFL. They were just freaks. They were athletic freaks. They were just uber talented. And I don't really think that was necessarily anything Fisher did. It was just a fact that right place, right time, right players. I'm not a believer in that guy. I think that Willie Taggart is a player's coach. I think that he's these guys are going to buy into what he's got going on. They got 2 capable quarterbacks now, Blackman and DeAndre Francois, Blackman pushed into duty last year because of the injury to Francois. He developed into a pretty decent quarterback at the end of the year. Everybody wanted to make fun of him because he weighed like 104 pounds. Well, you know, he did some good things. He led them to a win over Florida, their rivals. He led them to a win against ULM so they could get into a bowl, and ultimately led them to a bowl win against Southern Mississippi. So there was an upside there to James Blackman. Cam Akers at running back position, this guy is a beast. You should have seen him run over a couple of those Clemson defensive ends last year in that game. Nobody was watching that, but I was. I kept my eye on the outside there and some blocking packages. Akers absolutely lit up one of those Clemson defensive ends. Loved it. I'd like to see more of that this year. Jacquez Patrick, who spells him, 800-yard rusher last year himself. He does a good job. They're led on that offensive line by Alec Everly. That group's got to improve. I think it will get strengthened up a little bit, and I think that Florida State has always got team speed and decent players on defense. Virginia Tech, they're returning 5 starters on defense and 7 on offense. Something about Virginia Tech to me, it's like they just play old man football. They just play a boring game. Joshua Jackson, their quarterback, their returns, he's just as irreplaceable as, you know, what was that guy's name that was there a few years ago? It was like 10 feet tall. It was a quarterback. I can't remember his name. I can't even remember who they had a couple years ago. You know why? Because Virginia Tech has a bunch of nameless people on offense. You can't tell me who any of them were. You know, they're known for defense. They're known for Bud Foster. You know, with just 5 returning starters this year, I mean, I'm not a big believer in them. You know, they win these games every year. They win ugly games year after year, or just game after game. They just, you know, they don't put up a lot offensively. But still, this was a hard one to pick. You know what Virginia Tech is with Frente. You don't, you know, there's a little bit of an unknown with Willie Taggart. 7.5 points. Well, it's a lot, but it's not. I mean, that crowd is going to be pumped up. Doak Campbell's going to be full and rocking for the first time in a long time. Yeah. Give me the over on them. Florida State, they're coming back. That's my picks and predictions, guys. Check them out after Monday. See how I did. What was my final tally? I appreciate y'all, and I will see y'all later. Peace. I'm out of here. Go Gamecocks.